Andrea, it's great to have you on here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's talk about this. Huge year for science stories.
Big year.
How did you come up with the list?
Well, there's a lot happened this year. As you said, a Hawaiian eruption, data breaches, health issues. So the editors of Scientific American get together and they decide what the top stories are, which have the most lasting effects, and which really capture the minds of readers.
Okay, so let's talk about some of these. First, the future of Mars. I feel like Mars was like one of the buzzwords.
Big, exciting
of
things on Mars. Absolutely. In summer, an awesome report came out that there is liquid water on Mars. So a lake about 3 times the size of the island of Manhattan, underneath the south pole of Mars, of liquid water. And this is really just a tremendous discovery that there would be water somewhere else, another planet off of Earth. And it tells a lot about what Mars used to be like. It used to be a very watery planet like Earth, and there was rivers and streams and lakes and oceans with currents, and something happened to the climate there that sort of dried it up, and the water is gone, except for this pocket that we discovered. And so in some ways, Earth might be heading for that future. So looking at Mars now is almost like getting a glimpse into the future of our planet. Another really cool thing about finding water on Mars is that wherever there is water, there may be life. And I'm not talking about little green men here, but perhaps microscopic life that thrives in this really harsh climate, a terrible atmosphere compared to Earth, very barren and frozen. And so the fact that living organisms might be discovered there or could thrive there is pretty remarkable. And it also might help us understand how life got started at all.
Knowing all of this, I mean, that the environment you mentioned is so harsh there, do you think it's a responsible idea for Elon Musk to want to send people to Mars?
Well, you have to understand that that's very far off.
How far off?
In the future. I mean, dozens of years at least. The atmosphere is so different from Earth's. We'd have to find ways to actually survive there. And it's a great question because there are ethical concerns about sending Earthlings or even Earth robots or diggers to Mars, because we don't want to contaminate whatever biosphere is there, right? So we don't want to bring our microbes onto Mars's surface. It's sort of like being a bad guest and potentially destroy whatever we might discover there on the surface.
So it just seems like a bad idea that this guy is like promoting sending humans to Mars when we know that the facts wouldn't make it seem like a good idea.
Well, I think a lot of science and research has to happen before that's even going to be a possibility. And, he's a dreamer, among other things. So, I think it's fun to have, it really sparks the imagination, fun to have ideas about what might happen in the future. The fact of the matter is there's just too much we don't know about the planet and what our impact might be and what it might take to actually live there.
I'm not going to Mars. Not in the next decade.
Oh, well, come on, such an adventure.
Speaking of Mars, SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, there's always a lot of interest in space, but do you think 2018 was different than other years?
I think, because discoveries like this happen, you had the InSight landing on Mars about a month ago. You had another vessel breaking out of our solar system into interstellar space. I think that a lot of exciting things are coming to fruition, so I think it was a different kind of year. And you do have sort of these like big names who are taking an interest in this kind of technology. So they're sparking a lot of viewers' imagination and so I think there's always big things happening in space exploration, but it was an exceptionally cool year for stuff going on off of Earth.
Okay, well, let's talk back down here on Earth. Climate change,
yes.
Right? A big topic, obviously, in 2018. What were the major stories that you followed this year?
Well, a lot of climate reports came out this year. I mean, none of them telling us things that we didn't already know. I mean, climate scientists have been saying that the planet is warming for decades. The story that we really cover is what's happening in the Arctic. And so a lot of people think of the Arctic as sort of this far off place. It doesn't really have anything to do with us, but the real truth of the matter is that changes in the Arctic are having global impacts and very severe impacts. And the thing that was really different this year is that they're happening a lot faster than we ever anticipated. So it's truly like a meltdown. And one statistic I can give you is that in about 40 years, they think now all summer sea ice that is in the Arctic during summer, which is the warmer, quote unquote, months, will be completely gone in 40 years. And that's about 60 years sooner than we thought was going to happen. So, things are happening a lot quicker than we thought, and that's going to really have global impacts on us.
Okay, well, I kind of want to end on a happier note.
I know, it's a bummer.
It is a huge bummer. Let's do a look ahead to 2019. What are
Yeah.
the big science stories that are on your radar?
Well, there was a big news about using genetic engineering to manipulate the germ cells of babies out of China, and that was pretty controversial. And I think the science world is really going to be thinking about that going forward. How are we going to manage this new technology, and how are we going to keep ethical while we're
Yeah.
doing it?
Is the science world in support of that technology?
Well, listen, the scientists who work with CRISPR and gene editing technology are very aware of the ethical lines that we're kind of always bumping up against. And so there have been talks for decades about the power of this technology and where it might take us. So they're very aware. And so what happened in China was sort of like a rogue scientist going off and doing his own thing. And so I think we're really kind of like, it's a real nascent field coming to terms with its power. Scientists know how strong it is, how powerful it is. And so we kind of have to figure out how to wrangle that in for the new year. But I think that'll be on everyone's radar. And of course, issues with data and privacy, those technological issues are always hot topics. So I think we're going to see more of that in 2019.
Well, the only certainty is going to be a huge year. Andrea Garleski, thanks so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thanks so
Andrea is
much.
Collections Editor at Scientific American.
Thanks.